Back to another XLM video. In this video, I'm going to recap on the larger pattern, and then I'm going to zoom in to where it looks like we are now topping out. And I'm going to explain to you why I believe this market moved up. Well, the reason why it moved up is not a bad thing in terms of if it goes back down, because when you measure this move, the similar length of wave A in brackets, or some say parentheses, depends where you are in the world. Basically, we need to have a measured move down from the end of E wave, right? Now, this is based on AriasWave. It's nothing to do with AriasWave. AriasWave would have a hard time trying to understand a proper zigzag, and this is what I believe is a zigzag happening since 2018. So the fact that the E wave went up so high means that we get to draw that line from the end of wave E, because that would be the end of wave B in brackets or parentheses, right? Which means that we wouldn't see such a low price in the end. Well, in theory, right? Because wave C's in general can sharpen and go much lower or be much longer than the first move down, the wave A in parentheses. So this is not a problem, okay? This is just the way that AriasWave interprets these moves, right? So just to give you a bit of a recap, right? If you're looking at a zigzag, according to AriasWave, right, you get your 5 waves down, and then you go into the correction portion, right? Now, this is where it gets interesting, because for this particular move here, for example, right, you can have a zigzag that basically expands to the upside, right? It expands as such, and it's called, I call them a type 2 zigzag, right? And the reason why it's a type 2 is because the wave E ends much higher than the end of wave A, right? So that's why you have this expansion going on in the zigzag, right? And then you've got this zigzag down, which is practically just a regular zigzag, right? Which has got all the internal components as per the correction would suggest, right? And then you move down in 5 waves, right? Now, as I said to you before, wave C can be longer than wave A, right? So that's not a big deal. The interesting thing about this one here is that we had, well, you're supposed to see wave C, a 5-wave move, but this one turned out to be a weak 5-wave move. So instead you had a wave 1, then you had the wave 2, right? And then you had your wave 3, right? Wave 3 can't be the shortest. And then you had another expanded zigzag to the downside, right? B, C, D, E, and then you had that thrust. So you had this type of C wave move, right? Now, obviously, it's a bit smaller than that. And then what appears to be a D wave down, right? As per the XRP idea, same thing, right? So you had your weak 5-wave move down. This first move moved down in 3 waves. That's what kind of gave it away in the end. And then you had basically a zigzag, a full correction in the shape of a zigzag. So that's what kind of gave it that type of look, right? Make it look like a zigzag, but it really just was the full corrective pattern within that. And then you had your 5-wave move down to this low here, the end of D. And then you had your very sharp, right? You had your full correction down the bottom with a lot of alternation before you had your wave 3 and wave 4 and wave 5 almost to the highs, right? So then you need to see 5 waves down, right? Which needs to make a new low beneath the previous waves. All of these waves, one more low, right? Has to be one more low. That's the rule of a zigzag according to AriasWave. Anyway, so the point is that, as I've mentioned, Litecoin has a similar pattern. It has the same pattern, right? Obviously, waves can be different in size, but the components are all within each individual corrective wave, which means, well, basically, this got a lot more media attention, whereas Litecoin didn't, and it struggled to produce this wave E. So I'll link that video down below so you can see it, the Litecoin video. So anyway, let's zoom in to the highs here. First of all, let's take a good look at the pattern. Now, if you're just looking at this in terms of candles, well, you have a evening star reversal pattern here, like a spinning top with a confirming candle and another confirming candle, right? Now, the real body of the large red candle went deeply into the previous long green candle. So that's a good reversal. Then you had a confirmation. So I believe we're at a very interesting point here. Now, when you have a 5-wave move up, as I mentioned before, you get the corrective waves. But the problem is I can't see those corrective waves in this. So let me just zoom in and show you what I can see, right? So here on the 15-minute chart, I can see that we have, I might even go a bit closer, but let's just keep it like this for now. Actually, I'll go a bit closer to the 5-minute chart. And the reason for that is because I want you to have a look at some particular waves in here that are very interesting. So once we got that high, we had 5 waves down, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a weak 5-wave move. That's why there's overlap between the waves. Wave 3 can't be the shortest. Now, here you have an A and a B. Can you see that? There's 2 zigzags there, right? A, B. So this is very interesting. Then you had a 5-wave move. So that's A, B, C, and then this is a D, and the bounce was an E. So technically, if you would have known this at the time, as I did, you can go short, right? So you can go short at this point. Now, because it's fractal patterns, you can continue to go short as this progresses, right? Now, if this was going to be a zigzag as part of a correction, because you anticipate that this is going to go higher, you would have had to see a 5-wave move that made a new low. But because this wave E was so large, it never happened, right? And that's because this is not part of a zigzag. It's not a correction. It's part of the beginning of a new trend to the downside, right? So what that means is we have a wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's another weak 5-wave move. And that's okay because you're allowed to have the weak 5-wave moves in wave 1, right? So we'll label this wave 1. This is a smaller wave. It's the smaller degree wave 1, right? And then if you have a look here closely, you can see that you have an A, B, C, and this whole thing down to here is a D, and then you have an E, right? I think I went there. So that's basically wave 2, right? So I'll copy this here and put the wave 2 there, right? So at this point in time, okay, great. You can move your stop lower, and that's the next resistance point. Now, this is where it gets a bit funny because once you start counting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, it gets a bit weird, unless you're correct. Sometimes it could be wrong, but as I've said to you before, the potential for a zigzag is already gone. So therefore, I can only assume this is a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 pattern. Okay. Now, as you can see, this next 1, 2 has gotten sharper. So you could say that this is wave 1 of the third of a third wave for the first move down, at least, right? Okay, so what's next? So then you got an A, B, C, D, E pattern. Very small. We need to break below this level, this very micro level down here, and see the price really just start to hammer down, right? Which means that I suppose you could put another resistance area here once you get the confirmation for that move lower. Okay. And that's basically how I protect myself in case I'm wrong as I make these moves by observing the waves, right? You take a short position at a certain point and then you can lower your stops, right? And you can enter this trade at any of these points. These are the very important points, right? So I suppose you can put, once again here, you can put 1, 2, and this is like for the third of a third wave. So this basically means that price is going to go much lower in very soon, right? In the next few hours, in the next day. Whatever you want to say, I'm not really too worried about the timing of these things, but that's a setup for a move lower, right? So not only do the candles confirm it, but you've got, you know, other factors there, which to me is the most important, is the actual waves, because every single wave makes sense, right? So if you want to understand this more, I offer coaching on how to learn the waves. I have been starting to teach it on this channel, but for now, let's see how this goes. I'll catch you on the next one.